we're on.
Okay.
Right. We are with.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Layla, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You know, one of the things I loved about Writefest is that it was there's only one other literary journal festival in the country. And I never got to ask you this, but what inspired you to come up with the idea of hosting literary journals rather than, you know, what is typically done in a writers' conference, which would be novelists and agents and editors?
Right. That's a really good question. And it's funny that you bring up how rare this kind of event is in the country, because when we started talking about this and when I was kind of like fleshing out the idea with you guys, I didn't realize that this isn't something that was already being done, because for me it just felt like a completely natural thing to do for new and emerging writers. But then when we started doing the research, we realized that there weren't really any other events that were like that, which is when we started expanding our plans for it too, right? Really it was because I know that I always say this, but when I started planning this, I always saw myself as the target market, because when a year ago when we started planning it, I hadn't really been to many conferences. I didn't have any publications. I hadn't started I hadn't gotten very far in the submissions process, and I never felt like other conferences were catering to the kind of writer that I at the time was, somebody who was really into writing short fiction, somebody who didn't necessarily even have a novel planned. I don't know if that's something that I want to do. And then I know you write some poetry, and Holly, our co-organizer, is mostly writing poetry as well. And we've met all these people at Writespace who very much live in this world of short fiction and poetry and essays. So then we thought, everybody's writing short fiction and literary journals are publishing them. And we really just wanted to highlight the fact that these short works can be the focus of something and not just a stepping stone to a novelist career, that short stories and poems and all these short forms are their own worthwhile art form, worth pursuing and worth learning.
Right. So again, we are with Elizabeth White Olson, Director of Writespace in Houston, and Layla Al-Badawi, who is Events Coordinator. Do you have anything more to your title besides Events Coordinator?
Oh gosh, I think, was I officially the Festival Director?
Festival Director, yes,
for
not to
Writefest,
forget
yeah.
that. And we are in the Writespace offices in Houston's beautiful Silver Street studios in our Arts District here. And we have just concluded this week-long buzz of hive of this frenetic activity, this festival that just ended a couple of days ago. So Elizabeth, what about you? How had you conceived this conference, and what stood out for you as this all took place?
This conference, I don't call it a conference. I call it a festival. To me, a conference is something very serious and kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
A festival is something fun and celebratory, and I feel like this festival has spirit of really being a festival, rather than a conference. So, this festival was not my idea. And in fact, I never foresaw that Writespace would host a large event. My dream was to have a small workshop space where people could go really deep into their work and expand it and learn a lot very quickly. And I had that more contained dream. But when Layla and Holly came up with this fantastic plan and came to me and asked me, it sounded so awesome. I had to say yes. And I feel like it's been the neatest thing Writespace has done. Though we've had, many, many awesome workshops and many great readings, and fantastic events. But I feel like Writefest is the coolest thing so far.
This is what I love about working at Writespace and with Elizabeth, is that when I started here, Writespace was, just a half a year old or something. And just from the very first day when I walked in and said that I wanted to volunteer, one of the first things that you and Holly asked were what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? Rather than here's a job, just go do it. Which there's obviously a lot of that kind of stuff with volunteering too, but there was always room for, if somebody had an idea, that was always heard. I felt. So
Right.
thank you for being open to
The
that.
pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, and
This
Holly
wouldn't have happened
Wildroth,
otherwise.
Holly Wildroth, we should mention, is the third. She's
Yes,
a
yeah.
member of the Triad, right?
Yeah.
And you have plenty of volunteers, which is really impressed me all through this last week. This great spirit of the
Yeah.
volunteers. They really,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's the spirit of the conference. It was all focused on writing. And that's personally what I found that was different about this particular conference. So, and Elizabeth, what you were saying about this being not necessarily your idea in the beginning, you hadn't thought of that. But isn't it true that it really complements the
yeah.
goals of Writespace as an
completely.
ongoing organization? The festival complemented your continuing goals, right?
Yes,
So would you talk
and I
about
think
that?
sometimes, it absolutely represents what we want to bring to Houston and beyond in the writing community. And I think that sometimes the best dreams are the ones that maybe aren't initially ours. It became my dream, somewhat quickly.
Yeah.
I would like to just say something about our volunteers real quickly.
Yes.
You mentioned about at the festival just how amazing they were.
Yeah.
We had so many, and everybody was here working, just going above and beyond all the time. And I remember, Layla, the very first volunteer meeting we had, I gave a presentation. I said, there's 3 things that we need from our volunteers, and 3 things we're going for. This is what Writespace is about, these 3 things. I said, excellence. And I said, what were the others? Let's see if I remember.
Oh gosh, I don't remember the second one, but I can tell you the third one.
Yeah, the third one's the important one, actually.
which was something like magic and fairy dust.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
Elizabeth did a
pixie dust.
Elizabeth did a great job at expressing what she meant by that, which is basically your way of saying passion, right? Passion and kind of
Magic.
yeah, just the thought that you will be able to make something happen, even if you're not sure how, or if you're not quite sure yet how it's gonna come together. Just kind of that spirit that you need to kind of just believe in it, right?
Yeah.
And it's really funny that you bring this up, because at that meeting, where you spoke quite passionately about that, another volunteer who sat next to me, who at the time I didn't even know, and I don't remember who it was, kind of leaned over after me and said, I think Elizabeth is our magic and pixie dust. so you bring that passion a
Really?
lot too. Yeah, like that is a real
great.
thing that happened.
Well, there was plenty of
Wow,
that great
thank
spirit
you.
all through the week. We had a whole slew of workshops, discussions, panels, presentation on the whole gamut of a writer's life in the different genres, whether you're a poet or short fiction writer or novelist or playwright. So we had all of that. Which one did you enjoy the most? I'll ask both of you that question. Which particular
Oh
thing is
gosh, it's really funny because you end up, me as an organizer, and maybe everybody else too, I end up kind of being drawn to the things that are not the thing that I think about the most usually. So I didn't get to go to every programming item that I wanted to, but I got really excited about the fact that we got to put on the playwriting workshop, for example, which is not something that I've ever done before, but because it's just something I just imagine, and I hope that writers who came here got to experience programming items that spoke to their main focus, but also, because they were also on offer, got to go see things that were about things that they would not usually have seen, that were completely different.
And I think that, let me just, to touch on something that Layla is saying, I think that that's something very different about Writespace's approach to guiding writers than, say, a conventional MFA program, is that we really challenge writers and want writers to explore new genres rather than simply to write in one genre. There's certainly benefits that can come from that practice, and we are proposing something different because there's benefits that can come from trying new types of writing. You can you can learn skills in playwriting that you can then bring to fiction and so on.
Right.
That's right.
But so my very favorite, I was working a lot during the festival. I was running around doing things. But You know, I probably, the one on diversity, what was the exact title of that? That was fantastic.
It was wonderful. It was
Diversity and inclusiveness in the world of
it
publishing.
It was inclusivity and equality, and the responsibility that writers and editors have to publish in a responsible, in an inclusive way.
Interesting. Yeah.
That was a wonderful panel, and I feel like we could have kept going for hours and hours in that conversation.
I loved that one because I think it's one of the first times that conversation has been happening in Houston, and it's one that really needs to happen.
Yeah.
And it was really inspiring to hear those perspectives.
My favorite thing about that panel, rather than sum up what happened during the panel, as somebody who had to handle who to put on what panel, my favorite problem that I had in the making of the schedule was that everybody wanted to be on the diversity panel. Everybody wanted to be on it. So it was our biggest panel. It had 5 panelists and a moderator because I could just not keep people away from it. And I think that speaks to us having invited just a really good group of writers and editors who all just very strongly believe in this mission of inclusivity.
Right. I heard from people who attended too, everybody loved that one. Yes.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. And just to wrap it up, where do you go from here? Writespace, Writefest, what's next?
We definitely want to keep going with Writefest as an annual event. So we're probably going to take a tiny little break and then go straight into planning
For
next year's event.
Yeah.
And we really hope that we keep being able to strike this balance at Writefest of inviting editors from the literary world and editors from the speculative world, because one of the greatest thing about it for me has been putting people from those two worlds in conversation with each other. And we weren't sure how that was going to go, because that's not something that's usually done. And I didn't know whether editors would butt heads a little bit, but everybody's been really great, and everybody seems like they've learned so much. Not just seems, but editors of big journals come up to us after and say, we're so glad that we finally got to be in a room with editors who write outside our little world.
Right.
So that's been really great.
Elizabeth, for Writespace, what's your vision for next year and going forward?
Well, as the director, when I began, I had a lot of time for the really glamorous things, which is the writing instruction and the manuscript consultations, and I'm trying to keep room for that in my life, of course. But a lot of what a nonprofit's administrator needs to do to keep the business side of the nonprofit alive is to do a bunch of really fun accounting work, right? No, but seriously though, we really need to figure out how to get our finances underneath us and funding, grant writing and crowdsourcing and all the things that maybe aren't so sexy, but they're absolutely crucial to doing the awesome things we're doing. So for me personally, that's when I look ahead in the next year. As a grown-up.
And those things are so necessary right now because we're growing. We're growing really fast. So we kind of need to catch up with the growth that Writespace has been experiencing. So gotta really
in order to do
track
the
everything.
Things,
There's one more thing that I wanted to say. I'm so excited that you've decided this summer to kind of get really started with an online workshops program. And I think that's such a great thing to start after we've done Writefest, because Writefest has had a reach beyond Houston. We've had many editors from out of town. We had visitors who came to Houston for Writefest from out of state. So now that we have this base of people who know about Writespace across the country, we're happy to be able to offer workshops that not just people from Houston can take, that are online, that people from other places can take too.
Yes, we're really excited about that.
Having put on this truly memorable conference, I'm sure this is going to help your goals in terms of funding and extending, instruction to people beyond Houston. I'm sure that's just going to boost your whole, endeavor going forward. So let's wrap this up, and thank you very much again, Elizabeth White-Olson, Director of Writespace, and Leila Al-Badawi, Festival Director, Events Coordinator. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anif.